A 4.5 40 time, explosive power, and a smile that can light up Minnesota. But in just 1 year, Dalvin Cook went from superstar to a backup averaging just 3 yards per carry and is now sitting in the Cowboys practice squad, not even getting a roster spot on a team that is worst in the league for rushing. Liberty City, Miami, one of the toughest neighborhoods in America. This is where our story begins. In the same streets that produced NFL legends like Chad Johnson and Antonio Brown, a young Dalvin Cook was already turning heads from a young age. Born in 1995, Dalvin was the second of 6 children. His younger brother James Cook is the only other sibling in the NFL who was drafted in 2022 to the Bills. But life wasn't always easy for the Cook family. His mom worked multiple jobs to keep food on the table, sometimes going without eating herself to feed her children. This sacrifice would only fuel Dalvin's relentless drive. By age 13, Cook was already a local legend in Miami's football league. His youth coach, Luther Campbell, yes, the same Uncle Luke from 2 Live Crew, saw something special, saying that he's different, he's got that dog in him. At Miami Central High School, Cook wasn't just breaking records, he was breaking the mold, with over 4,200 yards and 64 touchdowns in his high school career. But more importantly, he was breaking the cycle. While many of his childhood friends fell to the streets, Cook had his eyes on something bigger. His mother's sacrifice would not be in vain. Initially committed to Clemson, then Florida, Cook finally landed at Florida State, the same school that produced Warrick Dunn, another running back who would overcome a tough upbringing to reach NFL stardom. At FSU, Cook didn't just play, he dominated. Over 4,400 rushing yards and 46 touchdowns in just 3 seasons, numbers that had NFL scouts drooling. But then, the draft day slide begins. Character concerns, prior arrests, shoulder injuries. NFL teams were scared. The Vikings, they're getting ready to show the rest of the NFL what they missed out on. What makes Cook's story even more touching is how far he'd come. From those tough Liberty City streets, he'd built generational wealth. His $63 million Vikings contract wasn't just about him, it was about changing his family's future. He bought his mom a house, helped put his siblings through school, and even watched his brother James get drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2022. Off the field, Cook never forgot where he came from. His Vikings table food truck served over 100,000 meals to Minnesota communities in need. The kid who once worried about not having enough to eat was now making sure that others didn't have to face the same struggle. In his first game, he set a Vikings rookie record with 127 yards and rushed for 354 yards in his first 4 games, before tearing his ACL in week 4. When he came back in his second season, he didn't look like the same running back as in college, rushing for just 98 yards in 3 games before re-injuring his hamstring and missing 4 games, and finished the season with just 2 touchdowns, both being from 1 game. Over the next 4 years, he would break out, rushing for over 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns, and rushing for almost 1,200 yards with 8 touchdowns in his last season, before getting released by the Vikings, marking the beginning of the end of his career. The reason for his departure was because of a new general manager that the Vikings hired, who did not want to invest big money in running backs, and with Cook not interested in a pay cut and Alexander Madison who looked promising on a much cheaper deal, Cook was released. About 2 months later, he would sign with the New York Jets on a deal worth up to $8.6 million and had his worst marks of his career, barely getting over 200 yards in 15 games and just 3.2 yards a carry. And with just 1 game left in the season, the Jets released Dalvin Cook. The Ravens then picked him up for the playoffs, where he played in the divisional game, recording 23 yards on 8 carries. He now sits on the Cowboys practice squad, waiting for his next opportunity that may never come.